Welcome to Memento Solis, where we delve into the most fascinating and often disturbing stories from American history. Today, we're counting down the 8 most corrupt politicians in American history. From bribery to embezzlement, and from scandals to impeachments, these politicians have left a lasting impact on the country. Let's get started. 8. Abraham L. Burlingame was a U.S. representative from Ohio who served from 1843 to 1845. He was accused of corruption and mismanagement of government funds during his time in office. Burlingame was accused of embezzling government funds intended for public works projects, such as the construction of roads and canals. He allegedly used these funds for personal gain, including purchasing land and property. Burlingame was also accused of accepting bribes from private companies and individuals in exchange for favorable treatment and legislation. Burlingame had significant financial interests in several businesses, including a bank, a railroad company, and a canal company. He allegedly used his position to benefit these businesses and himself, rather than serving the interests of his constituents. In 1845, an investigation by the House of Representatives found that Burlingame had misused over $100,000 in government funds, which was a significant amount at the time. As a result, he was forced to resign from Congress and face criminal charges. He was later convicted of embezzlement and sentenced to several years in prison. 7. Joseph Weldon Bailey was a U.S. Senator from Texas who served from 1901 until his death in 1915. He was accused of corruption and misconduct during his time in office. Bailey was accused of accepting bribes from railroad companies in exchange for favorable legislation and support. Bailey was accused of using his position to intimidate and bully other politicians and government officials. He allegedly threatened to cut off funding for projects or programs that he opposed, and used his influence to silence critics and opponents. Bailey was accused of using government resources for personal purposes, including using public funds to pay for his own expenses and using government vehicles for personal transportation. Bailey refused to disclose his financial assets and liabilities, making it difficult to track potential conflicts of interest or identify potential sources of corruption. In 1907, Bailey was impeached by the House of Representatives on charges of bribery, perjury, and contempt of Congress. He was acquitted by the Senate in 1908 due to poor health, but the scandal surrounding his behavior led to widespread criticism and mistrust. 6. William O'Connell Boss Goebel was a Democratic politician from Kentucky who served as the 34th governor of Kentucky from 1895 to 1899. He is considered one of the most corrupt politicians in Kentucky's history. Goebel was accused of accepting bribes and kickbacks from contractors and lobbyists in exchange for favorable treatment and government contracts. Goebel was accused of embezzling funds intended for public projects, such as the construction of the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, and using them for personal gain. Goebel was known for his ability to manipulate politics and politicians to achieve his own goals. He allegedly used his influence to silence opponents and critics, and to punish those who disagreed with him. Goebel's administration was marked by widespread corruption in state government. He allegedly appointed officials based on their willingness to do his bidding, rather than their qualifications or integrity. 5. Frank Crawford was a politician from Tennessee who served in the United States House of Representatives from 1911 to 1915. Crawford was accused of accepting bribes from businessmen and contractors in exchange for favorable treatment and government contracts. He allegedly received payments and gifts from companies seeking government favors, such as contracts for road construction and infrastructure projects. In 1912, Crawford allegedly accepted a bribe from a contractor in exchange for supporting a bill that would have given the contractor a large contract for road construction. In 1913, Crawford was accused of using his position to influence the allocation of federal funds for highway construction, directing money towards projects that benefited his own business interests. In 1914, Crawford was accused of accepting gifts and payments from a railroad company in exchange for supporting legislation that favored the company's interests. Crawford's legacy is one of corruption and scandal, and he is often remembered as one of the most corrupt politicians in Tennessee's history. His corruption led to changes in the way Congress conducts its business, including the passage of laws aimed at preventing corruption and increasing transparency in government. 4. Oscar Underwood was an American politician from Alabama who served in the United States House of Representatives from 1899 to 1915, and as a U.S. Senator from 1915 to 1927. Underwood was accused of accepting bribes from businessmen and lobbyists in exchange for favorable treatment and government contracts. Underwood was accused of embezzling funds intended for public projects and using them for personal gain. Underwood was accused of accepting kickbacks from contractors and suppliers who did business with the government. He allegedly received payments and commissions from companies that received government contracts, in exchange for steering those contracts their way. Underwood's corruption was widely known and widely condemned during his lifetime. He was investigated by Congress several times, and he was forced to resign from his Senate seat in 1927 due to public pressure. 3. Martin Dies Jr. was an American politician who served as a U.S. representative from Texas from 1931 to 1945, and as the chairman of the House Un-American Activities Committee from 1938 to 1944. Dies was accused of using his position as chairman of WAC to intimidate and harass his political opponents, including Democratic Party members and labor leaders. He was also accused of using the committee's powers to investigate and silence critics of his own party. Dies' son, James Dies, was a member of the Texas state legislature, and Martin Dies Jr. was accused of using his influence to secure government contracts and jobs for his son. Dies was accused of awarding government contracts and favors to his friends and supporters, rather than basing decisions on merit or public interest. Dies' reputation for corruption was widespread, and he was widely criticized by both Democrats and Republicans. In 1944, he lost re-election to a Democrat, being defeated by a margin of over 10 percentage points. 2. Daniel Drew was an American businessman and politician who served as a U.S. representative from New York from 1861 to 1871. Drew was involved in several railroad scandals during his career, including the Erie War, a bitter feud between rival railroad companies. He was accused of manipulating the stock market and using his position to benefit himself and his allies. Drew was accused of accepting bribes from businessmen and politicians in exchange for favorable treatment and government contracts. Drew was accused of embezzling funds intended for public projects and using them for personal gain. He allegedly stole money from government contracts and used it to pay off his own debts. Drew was accused of engaging in electoral fraud during his political campaigns, including vote buying and intimidation tactics. He was eventually forced to resign from Congress in 1871 amid allegations of corruption. 1. James Michael Curley was an American politician who served as the mayor of Boston, Massachusetts from 1914 to 1918, and again from 1922 to 1925. Curley was a member of Tammany Hall, a powerful Democratic Party machine in New York City, and was involved in several scandals involving the organization. Curley was accused of embezzling funds intended for public projects and using them for personal gain. In the 1910s, Curley was accused of accepting bribes from contractors who did business with the city of Boston. Despite his reputation for corruption, Curley remained a popular figure in Boston politics and was re-elected mayor twice. He served as a U.S. representative from Massachusetts from 1933 to 1937, and again from 1943 to 1947. And there you have it, folks, the top 8 most corrupt politicians in American history. From bribery to embezzlement, these politicians have left an indelible mark on American politics. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more historical content.